Okay, first up on the lineup, Doreen Dahl. She's from Cordova and fished as on a seiner. Wow, 51 to 65. I'm not sure what they got paid by the pound then. When there was few women on the boats, and now writes children's Alaska adventure books about fishing in Alaska, and just turned 86. Holy cow! All right, okay, let's get you fixed up.
Wait a minute, my pants are kind of tight. I'll pull them here. I thought the dryer made my clothes shrink this morning. Turns out it was the refrigerator. Okay, I'm just telling you a quick little story. When I was coming up, I stayed all night in the hotel, and I had these dreams that I was wetting my pants. I don't know if you've all had incontinence dreams or things. Probably everyone has. But anyway, I woke up, and I thought, just in time, I got to run to the bathroom. And then I felt something warm and moist and wet all around me. Yeah, I had to wet the bed. The reason I'm telling you guys this personal story is because I learned something very interesting. I learned that dreams really do come true. It's just a story. This is a poem. It's called Spring. I just came from a poetry class up at the college, so I'm going to practice on what they taught me, which was to smile and look people in the eye, but it's all pitch black out there, so I can't do that. It's called Spring. I live in Oregon now. Spring comes gently. Baby lambs, smell of fresh green grass, gentle rain, right. Gentle rain on my skin. Primroses appear, red, purple, yellow, and wild rhododendrons everywhere as the earth comes quietly alive. But I once lived in Alaska, in a fishing town. Spring is different there, the smells, the colors, no green grass, only gravel everywhere. First come icy winds whipping down the glaciers through town. Then the rains. Put on your full dress rain gear. It's going to be a wet one today. The snow begins to melt with an energy you can feel. The honking sounds of sandhill cranes and geese flying north. Noisy outboards in the harbor. The smell of engines, gasoline and fumes. On the docks, men yelling to each other, heaving their nets onto their boats. The sure sign of spring, the coffee shop. Crowded with fishermen, rumors flying, voices raised concerning the weather, the season, the price of fish. Cordova coming alive. I miss it. No red or purple primroses. Only gray pussy willows, no gentle rains, only howling gales, no lambs, only fish spawning in the day. Cordova in the springtime, I miss it. And this is a story called The Iceberg. A lot of stories will start out, it was a dark and stormy night. Well, this is true. We were on our seiner, the Valiant Maid, and we were tied up to the dock in Valdez one dark winter night. Only Ed and me on this trip. We were running the winter mail run to all the Cordova villages on the Sound and the canneries. This was our last stop before we docked in Cordova. And he was in a hurry. It's midnight and we're going with the tide. I looked at him angrily. The tide? What are we, a sailboat? I was in the galley arguing with him. We have no business going down Valdez Arm in the dark. No radar, nothing. It's winter. We could hit a log or an iceberg out there. Nah, they're never up the arm this far. I looked at him in frustration. But Columbia Glacier is right around the corner. But no use, he was determined. He was the captain, perfectly capable of handling any emergency that might arise. Now, I never felt comfortable riding down below in the forecastle when we were running, so I climbed into an upper bunk by the pilot house to rest. Ed was up in the pilot house, just him and Iron Mike. Crash! I jumped out of my bunk and I ran out on the deck. Ed was already there with a huge flashlight shining over the inky black water. And there it was, an iceberg as big as a mountain alongside us. We slid past it. We heard it scraping the side of the boat. Ed shone the flashlight down the side. There was a huge gash just above the water line. It had to be 12 to 15 feet long. "What do you want me to do?" "Just steer straight ahead," he yelled. I ran back to the pilot house, grabbed the helm, and steered straight ahead. When I looked back through the open galley door to the back deck, I saw him filling the skiff on the deck with water, and then he swung her over to the far side with the boom. This made the boat list that way, so the gash on the other side rose up about 6 inches above the water. It worked. We climbed down below to stuff mattresses into the gash to close the gap. I saw my bunk bed had been smashed against the bulkhead. Whoa. If that had been me down there, that would have been the end of me. "Way to go," I muttered. I was pissed off. We had even gotten into this predicament. We limped home very slowly. It took us 12 hours instead of the normal 2. I watched the weather for any signs of the wind coming up, but we were lucky. It was calm. All along the way, the more I thought about it, the madder I got. But Ed was a hero when we got to town. He saved us and the boat. He grinned, proud of himself. "What do you think? That was pretty great, huh?" I looked him in the eye. "You dumb shit." Limerick, I wrote. "There once was a man who was nice, but he never took any advice. His wife's he dismissed, and she really got pissed when his boat paid the ultimate price." And then my last story here is called The Knife. It's kind of an ode to the knife, you might call it. And all the fishermen I know carry a knife. That's what this is about. There's an old knife and sheath, about 70 years old. It sits in the bottom of Danny's gill netter. It belonged to his dad in the 1950s when things were handmade. A big chunk of leather with some copper rivets, burnished green with salt water and thyme. It didn't matter what kind of knife you had, fish slimer or whatever, just so it was kept sharp and you had a good sheath to protect it and yourself. When their dad died, Danny and his sister and family took his ashes, spread them out by an island where he used to deer hunt. But before we left town, they both strapped on the knife and sheath he had left them. It only seemed right. And this is an excerpt from Danny's log. He went fishing when he was 16 years old in a little skiff. 1970, 17 years old, May. Went on a date one night and left my sheath knife at home. Left for fishing the next morning without it. Southeast storm, down by Egg Island Light on a large minus ebb, no one around. Net out, kicker won't start, and 300 feet from shore in the whirlpooliest water you ever saw, in a small doghouse skiff, scared and knowing that this was it. Hank Stewart was coming in from the ocean. He came over, threw me a knife to cut my gear loose, cut the anchor line that wouldn't catch and hold. He threw me a line and told me to the anchorage. Thanks, Hank, 50 years ago and 50 years that he gave me. Hank died in January 2014. That summer, Danny's still talking. That summer, I went sailing on my grandpa's boat, the Lahey. Towards the end of the season, the boat ran up on a rock and capsized. It happened extremely fast. Water rushed into the galley and over us. We tumbled out the door onto deck, and I swam as quick as I could overboard and away from the sinking boat. I swam over to Grandma with a floating cooler for her to hang on to. I was feeling colder and colder. So now we were all in the water except Bill, the one crew member who couldn't swim. He had run up along the keel, which was now clear out of the water, and was shouting, "Help! I can't swim! Throw me your knife!" We all knew that if the boat went down, the skiff tied on the back would go down with it, and we would not make it to shore. I looked at him in the distance between us, nothing but water in between, and I yelled back, "No way in hell!" I was not going to throw that knife for him to catch or maybe miss. So I swam over to the side of the boat, pulled out my knife, handed it to him to cut the line. Then I climbed aboard the skiff, and we rowed over to Grandma and Grandpa, heaved them aboard. They were shaking. It was June, but the water was still freezing. We rowed to the shore, started a fire, and sat there for hours until a boat cruising the beach spotted us and radioed to town for a plane. For a short time, I had a small hero status in town, but the real hero was the knife. I got one more here. There's one more little vignette, sorry. Danny Carpenter and his friend were on the dock, getting ready for their first opening. They were loading up their new expensive gill net, and they were admiring it. They had saved a long time for this. An old fisherman was walking down the end of the dock, and I just lost my papers here, okay, was walking by on his way to his boat. "That's a pretty nice net you got there," he grinned at both of them. "But don't be afraid to cut her loose." Danny laughed. "Too good a net for that." That afternoon, the storm caught them, and their gill netter drifted closer to the breakers. They tried to tow the net away, but it was too heavy, so they turned the boat around, thinking to put it forward so they would have more power. In making the turn, the net fouled the props and the engine stopped. Danny and his friend took one look at each other and ran to the back with their knives out and began slashing the net away from the prop. And then they cut her loose. Now I'm told that not every fisherman carries a knife nowadays, maybe because of travel regulations, whatever. But on most gill netters, there's a sheath made of plastic, tape, whatever. It's taped or bolted near the steering helm so that the knife is within easy reach of the fisherman when he's bringing in or letting out the net. Again, it doesn't matter what kind of knife it is, just that he keeps it sharp. So if you were in the bar and I was telling the story, I would say let's raise our glasses in a toast to the knife and to all the fishermen who've ever had to use it. So maybe the next time you're in one of the other venues, maybe you could do that. A toast to the knife. I have a parting saying for you. Keep your net wet, catch all you can, but know when to cut her loose. I think that's it. That's it.
Okay, so hi. What's your name?
My name's Don Pugh. This is Kim Sayers.
Kim Sayers. Okay, and where are you from, Don?
Snohomish, Washington.
Is this, and we're not going to ask you any questions unless if you want. Okay, so what brings you here?
I'm a fisher poet who came down here to perform, tell lies,
Oh, so you're a performer?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I'm a storyteller, although John Broderick, who's the granddaddy of this whole thing, always encourages us to try poetry. So last night I tried one. You want to hear it?
Yes, absolutely.
Granted, I'm not a poet, so this is like new ground for me. Roses are red, sockeyes are red. Poetry's hard. Oh, hell with it. Let's just go fish.
Great.
And then, of course, I bow. And then I go on to telling stories because that's what I do.
Well, how does it feel to be with a poet?
Oh, it's entertaining, yes, to say the least.
Have you any highlights for you? I mean, aside from obviously seeing his performance.
Oh, today, just seeing the sights of Astoria, really love the waterfront. Went down and had some razor clams, and yes, we love it here.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I can cut that out if you want.
Great.
But you did great.
Thank you.
Well, are you performing tonight?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, when and where?
I'll be at the Voodoo at 9:15. Last night I was at the Liberty, which was being broadcast on KMUN. And of course, I have sometimes a little bit colorful language. And then I realized halfway through that it was being broadcast. So I apologized by using profanity. So I'm not sure how I ended up or whether I'll ever be asked back. But it was fun. We always have fun down here. Well, thank you.
All right.
You
Pleasure
bet.
to meet you. Thanks.
Bye. Enjoy the sun while it's here.